Well, thank you so much for coming. This is Be the Hero and Rescue Yourself with Kelly Fullman. And as I always say, through my lifetime, professional and personal, I have met some pretty amazing heroes in my life. And they have been instrumental in just helping me through some tough times, whether it is on a personal level or whether it's even in a professional level. And I love to interview my heroes. So I actually brought one from right down the street.
Traveled a long way.
Just a long way. To talk about today about loss. And it's not just loss in a family member when it comes to grieving, but it's loss in a mother becoming a mother and maybe, leaving her job and staying home, or the loss of your freedom when you're a mom, or the loss right now of what's going on right now with our layoffs and furloughs and everything else, or loss of our freedom to be able to go and do what we want. So how have we dealt with that loss? And just some tips and some tricks that we've had and we've done and we've created for ourselves. And hopefully this will help you today. So my very special guest, introduce yourself, Kia, and let me know how we met and a little bit about you.
Yes. So I am Nakia Mohair. I live literally 2 houses over. So I've known this lovely lady. We've been neighbors for the last going on 5-6 years now. Long time. So we've been in each other's lives for a while now. I am a registered dietitian, so I've worked in lots of different healthcare settings. I've started blogging. I've just kind of got my hands all over the place. I have 2 young kids. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I just, I don't know what it's like to be still. I'm just all over the place, and I love it because I have so many great things in my life. But I've never been on a podcast, so I'm like really excited about this. I feel official.
Tell me a little bit about your blog, because I know you started that quite a few years ago.
Yep. So I started my blog. It's called It Is Well, and I thought of that name because I think just as moms and women and myself and my experiences personally, I just was almost like, and I also was a gymnast in college, if that kind of gives you a clue of my type A. So I've always strived for the 10 for perfection. So I found myself in mom life like thinking that all this stuff had to be perfect and had to be just a certain kind of way. And I was like wearing myself out trying to get it there. And so I had insomnia with my second pregnancy. And so when I had been thinking about this blog, I just didn't have a name for it. And so I don't know why it just came to me, It Is Well. Like whatever it is, whatever you can change, whatever you can't change, whatever season you're in right now, just let it be well with your soul and just trust that, things are going to turn the corner, or that he's going to use whatever circumstance you're in to either be a benefit or a light to you or to someone else. So that's where It Is Well came from. So I love it. It's kind of like an outlet to just, talk about those things that sometimes it's hard to talk about or it's hard for people to understand. So it's just a really cool outlet. So.
And people understand it and get it more than you think.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like my podcast. It's become a little bit of a therapy for myself, not just trying to figure out if what I have to say is going to help other folks.
Yep.
So we're talking about loss today. And there's been a lot of loss over the last few years for your family and my family as well. So let's just dive into it.
Dive in.
We talk about the grieving process and we talk about that first step, which is denial. And whether have lost someone that were very loved ones or very close to us or a good friend, or even lost that job or getting laid off, how healthy or unhealthy can that denial stage be, depending on how you handle it? So tell us a little bit about some of the stuff that you have been dealing with.
So where do I even start? So the last couple of years, I've lost people. I've lost a friend that was kind of like a brother to me. My husband lost his father. I've lost jobs, all kinds of things. And then, like Kelly mentioned before, sometimes you kind of lose your identity. You lose your sense of purpose. Loss is not always a physical loss of a person. It can be so many different things. But I think that denial thing, I think it's just a defense mechanism, because we don't really want to deal with what's going on.
Right.
So, and I don't think there's really ever anything good that can come from the denial process. I think at some point you kind of get to where you say, okay, I'm actually really not okay. And you kind of move out of that denial process into another stage, I think. But, it's just so much easier to say, I'm fine. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Or, you know what? I'm going to just do whatever. I'm going to be fine in this. I'm not worried about my job when really you are. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just a protective thing for us because who really, I don't want to feel the feelings of grief.
No.
I don't want to feel those things. So it's so much easier to deny that they're there
Mm-hmm.
or, whatever, deny that it really happened or however people go through the denial process. It's just, and I think that's why it's first
Right.
because it's just like you want to protect yourself from what just happened.
Right.
So you just either act like it didn't happen or you act like your feelings about it don't exist.
Right. Which can be kind of dangerous if you keep moving and you don't get out of that denial stage and truly get into the acceptance stage. Because sometimes we mask it with acceptance, right? Yes. I got this.
It's all good.
It's all good. But then when we start bearing those emotions back, as you know, as a mom and a wife, it's that explosive part.
It's like it's either explosive or in my case, I think it was implosive. Because I've always just been like an it's fine kind of person. Like, I have my moments, my breakdowns or whatever here and there. We all do. But I think as things kind of compounded and, I think certain things hold different weight the older you get to. And when you have kids and, you look at life maybe a little bit differently. So a lot of the things that I went through just weighed differently on me. And so I didn't necessarily, other than, I blogged and things like that, but I'm not bearing my whole life's, emotional issues, in my blog post or whatever. But I got to a point to where it started manifesting in anxiety, which was super crazy because I've never struggled with anxiety. I've never struggled with
competitive gymnast. You're on it mentally. You know how to get through that.
Exactly. And that was probably my problem from the get-go. Like, I got this. Just keep on moving. But, I started just being really anxious. Like, not like a life-altering anxiety, but like I have to stop and be like, whoa, like, that really scares me. Like, whether it be in a physical situation where, here's a funny example. I don't think I've ever told you this before, but I flew to Nashville for a conference or whatever by myself. It was going to be the longest I'd ever been away from Trevor and the boys. So, like, I was excited, but I was kind of anxious too. And the second I stepped on that plane, I felt like, oh my God, like, I can't do this. Like, I'm going to freak out. And I think in hindsight, I felt like on the plane, like physically on the plane, I felt like I was trapped. And I think that mirrored how I felt in my life, like feeling like I'm trapped in this season, I'm trapped in this job, these feelings are trapped within me. How do I get them out? How do I express them? Because a lot of those feelings I'd never dealt with before. So for me, it was more of an implosive kind of thing. And just to, like you're saying, before you can move on to that next stage of acceptance, you have to be able to get it out, whether it's journaling, counseling, like whatever, you know what I'm saying? Because it just ends up being a bad situation.
And counseling or having just that friend that that will be brutally honest with you about listen and understand and have empathy, but not coddle or baby you, because that's the last thing that we really need in that moment. We really need someone to just because I implode too, but I crawl into my little corner and I shut everybody out of my life because I don't want to pull anybody into my crap. That's my thought process. Everybody's got their own mess. Everybody's busy. I don't want to pull anybody else into my mess. And so I just huddle in the corner, and then all my friends are like, "Where'd Kelly go?"
Don't worry, I'm just over here,
with my cat
feeding
my
eggs. That's fine. It's fine.
Which is good. It's okay in a moment, and that's what I tell people all the time. It's okay to have a moment of the hair that you hadn't washed in days, and the t-shirt and the sweatpants and some chocolate and watching some Netflix.
Sure.
But staying there is where it gets unhealthy. And I have friends that will come to my house and physically yank me out of my house.
You need those kind of friends.
And you do. Or they will call me and text me and message me saying, "You're not crawling in your corner. You're not going to do this. You're going to come and meet me. I don't care how you look."
And that's good that you have friends that even know that you do that. Because some people are not even open enough to tell people, hey, if you don't hear from me or if X, Y, and Z occurs, then hey, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
So the fact that you even have friends who know to come do that for you is already big, because a lot of people will be in that corner, but nobody knows they're there.
Yeah.
And that's even more dangerous.
I was brutally honest with my two best friends, Danny and Kelsey. I was like, here's what I do when I get stressed. And they both know. And Danny actually does the same thing, and
Mm-hmm.
so does Kelsey. So all three of us are that
Mm-hmm.
way. So we'll show up at each other's places and drag each other out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
We hadn't been able to do that,
I know, not
but
now.
FaceTime and all
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff just to make sure that we're okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is a huge part of getting through that stuff is being vulnerable, and that's another thing.
It's so hard.
Yeah,
it's so hard.
How big did vulnerability play in you healing from the anxiety and being able to kind of open up into your blog and maybe even talk to Trevor, your husband, about these things and how you were feeling?
Huge, because I think in my subconscious, vulnerability kind of equals weakness a little bit. It kind of means like, oh, you can't handle that on your own kind of thing. You're supposed to be super mom. You're strong, you're strong or whatever. So that was really big. So I really had to come to terms with, hey, that doesn't mean you're not strong. It doesn't mean anything like that. But, it's just that necessary step you have to take. And so I felt like a weight was lifted when I finally did share it with Trevor and when I finally did start talking to my friends about it. Because I'm that one that I hadn't even really shared with my friends. Like, I'm feeling anxious, like at this level, you know what I mean? And of course, I have a circle of people who are super, super supportive. But man, you think people are going to judge you or feel some kind of way, but that's just your own, you listening to those negative voices in your head and believing those things, because just saying it was like, wow, I feel better. Like, it's not just all weighing me down anymore. So it was a big, big step for me to take, but taking it was huge because it put me on the path to that next step,
Yeah, which is that next step, and the other part of it is, I think you said something when we were talking or discussing out, in my driveway and our lawn chairs. Yeah. You talked about also you were able to get through the anxiety because you figured out it wasn't just about me. Yeah. So talk a little bit about that, because I think that's huge. I think we go through our 20s thinking it's all about us. Miss Beaumont, Miss, going to Miss, it was it was an individual sport, right?
Yep.
Gymnast. Yes, it had a team, but you were an individual on your own. Yeah. So how did that come into play? Because we talked about it's not just about us anymore.
Yeah. So I don't know what the defining moment was, but I think it just really hit me, like, because I'm always that person that thinks, oh, well, I'm sad, I'm whatever, I don't want to do this, maybe I should just blah blah blah. And at some point in time, as I'm kind of going through this process, I had to realize, well, you're not the only one who's going through this. Or maybe you are the only one going through this, but maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's someone else. So I think when we can really remove ourselves from the situation and realize, hey, this is not just about you. Right. This is not just about your feelings. There's such greater plans revolving around this. And, you just have to kind of submit to whatever, his plans are for you at the end of the day, because, things may happen to us, but they're not always for us. Right. And so I had to really be mindful of, yeah, I'm sad, but maybe Trevor's sad too, Right. So it can't just be like, oh, well, I'm just sad. I'm going to just go hide in this corner and I'm just going to be over here and I just need you to just do this or whatever. But that's so unfair, because that's making the assumption that I'm the only one that's going through anything. Right. You know what I mean? So once, I really had to realize, hey, it's not just about you. It's not just about your feelings. It's about his plans and how he's going to work through you to accomplish or achieve whatever he wants to accomplish. That doesn't make it any easier. Right. But, so, I mean, that was a big thing for me. Like, it's not about you. It's not about you.
I think it changed on how I reacted to people out in the real world, too.
Oh, yeah.
Because I start thinking it's not just about me. I'm not the only one that's going through stuff. So that person that honked at me or told me I was number one on the road or yelled at me while I was in line or whatever, for whatever reason,
nothing to do with you.
Has nothing to do with me. And when I kind of settled in on that, I'm like, okay, I love you. I'm going to smile at you. Yep. I'm going to pray for you. I hope whatever's going on in your world gets better. Yep. But I can't waste my energy and my emotion on what's going on with you, and allow what's happening in your life to affect what's going on in mine. Yep. And it really changed.
It changes how you react to everything. Yep. When you realize, okay, maybe they're just having a bad day.
Yeah.
Maybe they just lost someone in their lives.
Right.
Maybe they just lost their jobs, or maybe who knows, So when you kind of have that understanding, it makes it easier to give people grace.
It does.
And it makes it easier for you to give yourself a little bit of grace. So it's just, and that's when you can really start letting whatever the process is, you being a light in the process. Like I said, in his plan, who knows, what his plan really is. We're just here to be the light as best way as we can. But when those things happen, when you're able to look beyond the action or beyond the behavior, then that's when the grace and your light really shines to people. And at the end of the day, that's what really matters.
Right. And that's when people start coming in and saying, Kia, how did you
not punch them in the face?
Right.
You just let them talk to you. Well, here's how.
Here's how. Mm-hmm. There's the conversation you can have with someone, and hopefully help someone else. Again, I think when I started this podcast and I started my book, I had gone through all of that me stage and, defining myself through my career, defining myself through the pageants, defining myself through the bodybuilding stuff.
Yep.
And I finally just sat down and was like, you know what, everything that you've been through, Kelly, this book is not about you. It's not about, because when the book is finally published, I don't care if I make $1.
Yeah.
If I have helped one human being and I have, no other book gets sold, then it's more than what, it's more. And then it's the same thing with my, the stuff that I do with the Denton County Sheriff's Department is it's not about me going in and showing these kids how awesome I am.
Yep.
It's about them and listening and loving them through all the crap that they're going through.
Yep. I agree.
But yeah.
I agree. And I think that's so big too, because you're saying, I don't care if I make $1. I don't care, whatever, as long as I help some people along the way. And that's so big, because I know with me, I struggle a lot with focusing on outcomes and what I want to happen and blah, 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 blah.
We're business women.
Of course.
What we do.
But you kind of miss the point, Ultimately, you and I and anybody else in the world, I can't control the outcome of a situation. Whether it's the success of my business or the reaction of somebody else, that's not anything I can control by anything that I do. So it was really big for me to say, you know what? All I can do is be obedient to what I know I'm supposed to do and let the outcome be to him, because I can't control the outcome. And when you are obedient in writing the book, serving with these kids, at the Denton County Sheriff's Office, then the outcome will come in his time and his way and his plan. But your obedience will touch people, as and that's so big that you said you're not worried about how many books you sell, because that's not ultimately what matters at the end of the day. So that's super huge that you said that.
No. And so now moving into loss, how are you working with being stuck at home and kind of losing that kind of freedom? And you've got 2 little ones. I'm blessed to have a 13-year-old that's self-sufficient. Still trying to keep him busy.
Yeah.
But you got littles.
Yeah. It comes in waves.
Yeah.
It comes in waves for sure. The initial phase is, okay, we're home. We're going to have some family, because everyone's tired and overworked and everyone's been running around like crazy people. So the initial reaction is like, a break. We're going to be able to relax and we're going to watch movies and we're going to blah, blah, blah. And then you kind of move into the stage of like, no. What are we doing? Are we still at home? So, but you have to just be so careful, because, and I tell myself, and Trevor's really good at reminding me, that, we pray for these things and we pray for certain things and then we get them and we're only satisfied for a period of time. Right. And then it's like you want the next thing. So I'm trying to be very careful at enjoying every day, regardless of what comes, of enjoying every moment, regardless of what happens, because, excuse me, I can't pray for more time at home with my family and then get it and be like, oh my God, I'm ready to go. That's not how it works. So you have to be very careful that you're not being ungrateful, because there's always blessings in these situations, even though there's so much terrible things happening with this virus out there, but there's purpose in everything. Yes. So, if we are going to really gain, and really take in what that purpose is, and you have to slow down and find yourself grateful, even in situations that you do not want to be in, or even in situations you do want to be in, or whatever the case may be. So my challenge is slowing down, because I'm not someone who can sit still for too long. Right. So I'm trying to just be still.
Which is so difficult.
Oh man.
Now, you met, like, Trevor and I have always said this about, he is like the calmest,
So calm.
most laid back. I mean, because there's been different situations, like the bad accident that happened in front of our house, and my husband's hot head prevailed, and Trevor was the calm in the storm, and just kind of calmed everybody down and got the situation under control. And I've always been amazed at how calm and collective.
Me too.
Has he always been?
He has always been like that.
Wow.
Always. And I just thank the Lord, because I'm not that super calm person. Gotcha. Like, I'm the more so the one that's gonna be more emotional. I'm not gonna flip out and fight anybody, but I'm just more emotional. I wear my feelings on my sleeves, and I'm much more vocal and all those kind of things. And when I tell you, he can be calm, it doesn't matter what the situation is, and I really just sit back like, how do you do that? And like, you know, it's so funny, you always think in the beginning of relationships, I could be so mad about something, and he's like, oh, well, it's fine. And I'm like, no! I'm like, don't you care? You know, and he does. He cares so much, but he just has such a spirit of calmness. Like, it's really, I really am in awe to like see it every day. But that's him all the time.
Wow.
All the time.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing.
It is amazing.
It's amazing.
And you know what I enjoy, what I have enjoyed, and you know, my loss, you know, being laid off for now going on 8 months, thinking I had the dream job with Disney, and you know, and at that moment it was the dream job, but you know, then traveling a lot, being away from my family, it started to wear on my husband and I's relationship. It started to wear on some of my personal goals that I wanted to achieve, which was my book. I didn't have time to do it. And then when all this came to a screeching halt, guess what? I started my podcast, and I started my book. So you try to see the positive in things, but also our neighborhood. Like, we're getting out and we're talking to each other.
Trevor's like, it's like the 90s when people went outside and talked to each other and rode their bikes. It's so cool to see.
So I always think about, even when we lose something, you talked about, you know, we may gain something in return, maybe more perspective, or when we lose a loved one, we need to stop saying, like, when we go to the funerals, we need to see each other more than just at a funeral. We always say that.
We say it, yeah.
But do we really do it? Which is so important. And the same thing is, we need to get to know our neighbors, and kids play together, and
because that's what really matters. And I think, you know, like I said, there's so many terrible things happening in this crisis right now, but I really think this is a time for us to really step back and reflect on those goals that we had, and reflect on maybe a lot of things that we prayed for. And it's funny because sometimes we pray for certain things and they come packaged like this, and it's just, it kind of throws our human minds off. But it's like, hey, Kelly, you prayed for having more time at home. You prayed for this book. Or Kia, you prayed for this to happen. Or traveling was really, because Trevor traveled, you know, all the time, you know, so him being at home too. So, you know, it's just funny how you can pray for something and it comes in like an odd package like this. Right. So that's when I'm saying you have to step back and say, you know what, this is not how I envisioned it going, but all of those things that I wanted, more time with my family, you know, more intentionality with people, those personal goals, working out more, whatever, like all of that is coming for everyone, you know? So there's always good that comes out. You just have to look for it, and you have to find your answered prayers within crisis, you know, because a lot of times it comes packaged in ways that we just didn't think that it would.
No, you're right. Well, tell us how to find your blog.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put a link below so you guys can go to Kia's blog and be able to read some of her insights.
Yes.
Because that is the key important thing, is women supporting women in business. And then I know that you also do Rodan and Fields too. Look at the skin, y'all. The skin is unfreaking real.
Thank you.
So, you know, I will get all of her links below and make sure that you guys have access so you can get to know her just as much as I've gotten to know her as well. It's an absolute amazing joy to have different perspectives just down the road.
I know. I didn't even have to go far for this.
Right.
It's so great. I love it.
Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you come back, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also you can find me on Instagram, Podbean, Spotify, you name it, and y'all be sweet.
Bye, y'all. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into my podcast, Be the Hero and Rescue Yourself with Kelly Fullman. If you enjoyed listening to my podcast or watching this YouTube video, please follow or subscribe to my channel and walk with me through my journey of celebrating my very own heroes and an opportunity to learn the valuable lessons they taught me over the years, which allowed me to gain the courage to wear my very own cape and be the hero of my life. You can also follow me on Instagram at K Fullman, that's KFUHLMAN, at Facebook, /K Fullman1, or on LinkedIn, Kelly Fullman MBA. Also, please leave your comments below because I see feedback as a gift and it will guide me on how to help you gain the courage you need to rescue yourself. Be sweet, y'all. Thanks.